I'm putting this up because I'm going to relate to this and what I'm going to read next. This was published April 1984, and Larry Flynt endorsed me for the presidency. I had run in a political campaign the prior year in October of 1983 to replace Congressman Larry McDonald, a U.S. congressman and a physician from Atlanta, Georgia. Uh, okay, Mr. Flynt says here that I know who was responsible for his shooting in Lawrenceville, Georgia. He mentions Larry McDonald. Let's see, Congressman Larry McDonald. Who else has he got on here? Well, District of Georgia. Well, I'm already starting out kind of bad. I'm not feeling all that great. Well, I don't know. Where was it? Excuse me, I'm getting to it here. Oh, here it is. Al Burroughs and Larry McDonald and State Senators Thomas Murphy and Culver Cover-Up Kid. Okay, so that I can get this on here, I want to show my father's picture because it's what is involved in all this. My dad is Edward VIII, who never married Wallace Simpson. He would not follow the orders of the Illuminati, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, Joe Kennedy, his son JFK, the Kennedy clan, and part of my own family, George the Illegal Six, who was given the position of monarch by the Illuminati when they took out my father, who was married to American school teacher Claudia Ruth O'Keefe in 1936. He never married Wallace Simpson, a double did. Now, I was born in 39, and my father had made arrangements stating should he have an heir, the heir would not be disinherited. I guess most people thought since he was 40, well, my mom was 40 when I was born. My dad was 45 in 39. So I guess their thoughts were, well, they got rid of my dad, but they didn't count on him having an heir and making preparations if he did have. So they kidnapped me, and my own uncle is here with, this is George. He was made monarch, isn't that cute, by the Illuminati, the global government, calling themselves the United Nations now, the Freemasons, the Mafia. This is Elizabeth's mother, Rothschild. They called her the Queen Mom. Of course, she isn't. They don't mention my mom. They wiped her off the map. This is FDR. I just put some stuff up about his so-called murder in Warm Springs, and you get into Eleanor. In fact, they mention some of the things I've put up here in this video I'm going to ask you to watch. So I've shown this where Larry Flynt was shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia, March the 6th of 1978. And I'm doing the book on mind control murders, how you can program a person to kill, like the Manchurian candidate, to kill. And you can program, this is back then, you can program armies and armies, what'll it do, reach around the world, or has it already? And then who's in control? Anyway, I'm going to show one of the doubles. That was a total lie. She became, she was American spy, and she married a double imposter became the illegal Duke and Duchess of Windsor, and yes, Elizabeth's always known it, gone along with it. She knows about me and my kidnapping, being brought to Moulton, Alabama, Lawrence County, which the name Lawrence is used in here a lot. Larry Flynt was shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and so much happened there in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And this is my Aunt Georgia O'Keeffe, the artist. And my mom was her baby sister. Now I want to mention this. Well, I'm having a ball here today. Having trouble with my heat. I'm allergic to chemicals, and it's turned darn cold here. So I made the mistake of turning it on this morning. Oh, okay, I don't want to get this dirty. This is a book sent to me. Well, somebody brought it up the trail. I was living on the Appalachian Trail to have a place to be. I came to Roanoke in 1986, and my mom and dad were still alive and married to each other then, October the 20th. But they sent this book up, and it had just been published by, I believe it's Tex Morris, who's deceased. It's called Implantable Biochips, and it's talking about biochip will be the agency by which all financial transactions are registered. Without it, no transaction of any kind will be permitted. There will be no income, no food, no shelter. Once in place, universally, Satan's system of the total electronic enslavement will have been imposed upon all citizens of the New World Order. Mark of the Beast. Okay, I'm going down here because I'd already said he was one of them that was programmed. They were done in patterns, just like the man that shot Larry Flynt was programmed. And by the way, let me go back and say I was writing about the Tesla files, where you can create an illness or cure it in its connection to the Center for Disease Control. And that means cancer. They've always had a cure for cancer and all this. Now, this is Timothy McVeigh, and he says here, he told everybody he had a chip up his buttocks put there by the U.S. Army. It was implanted, a computer chip. I hope you can see this. Now, I put that up. I'm going to try to read this, but I hope that you all take the time to read, or not read, but to look this up. Larry McDonald, remember, I've just told, I ran in that campaign to replace him when the KAL was shot down, when it veered in 10 miles into Russian airspace. So obviously they shot it down. Of course, the KAL pilot was a seasoned pilot, and he was programmed. This is part of mind control to fly off into oblivion or a mountain or the ocean or 10 miles into Russian airspace. Okay, the title of this is Larry McDonald on the New World Order on YouTube. It's 17 minutes and 41 seconds long. It was posted the April the 22nd of 2011. Now I'm going to try to read this here. I've given you some background, and some of the people killed in the mind control that are done in patterns was Elvis Presley. Well, there's been some others, Duke Wayne, and a whole bunch of them. Okay, now, not funny, Mark for Mark supposedly committed suicide. You get a long list, and a list of them out at Redstone Arsenal. Jack Hartsfield's deceased. He was an FBI agent, and he worked for the Huntsville Times until he was telling too much of the truth, and he saved my life, by the way. I worked for the district attorney in 1980, and Fred Simpson, Madison County, Alabama, and I'd been almost killed April Fool Day of 80. I thought it was because of the book, and later I know that was in part, but part of it was who I am, and heir to the rich crown. Now, and who kidnapped me, and Americans went in, pretended they're saving us, and in fact they went in to invade us and make the Brits fight against their own best interest. So I'm just going to go to this, and well, I thought I had it together a little. I wanted to say this, and I'm skipping around. Mae Brussell, Brussell, died October the 3rd of 88. John Lennon donated money so Krassner, could afford to print Mae Brussels' work. She was a columnist, journalist, talk show host. And Larry Flynt, when I was out there in '83 during the campaign, told me to call her and talk to her. I did briefly, and she was on the way somewhere else, and I didn't get to talk to her long. Anyway, in some of these murders, like Lawrence Patton McDonald was Larry McDonald. The Lawrence is like Lawrence County, Alabama, where I was taken, Moulton, Alabama, when I was kidnapped, and JFK helped take me there. His father had been appointed ambassador to England by Roosevelt. Now, you get the input into this tape that I've asked you to watch also. I just came in contact with it today. They tell about Casey, CIA director, and I really can't remember that much about him, only it was very prominent when I started doing the book, and I cannot relate back now how it came into play. But anyway, who killed Larry McDonald? Mae Brussels. Who killed Larry McDonald? Is there any reason to believe that an admittedly upright U.S. congressman traveling the 007 and head of the John Birch Society, well, I guess I don't know where I'm going from there, that he would go down in the plane. What she's saying is what I did. Do you really think that he went down, or it was a takedown to make it look like he was on it? Yeah, the shooting down. Oh, okay, let me go to this. To make it appear that he was on the plane, 268 passengers drowned. He was en route from Juneau, Alaska, Seoul, South Korea, August the 31st of '83, when U.S. Congressman Larry McDonald was supposed to be aboard. Now then, they took down the whole plane, is what she's implying, and that's what I've heard, and he wasn't even on it. And it was back to the book that I had attempted to write, and it connected Emory University and the Center for Disease Control. One of the doctors that was so good, he was head of psychiatry and law at Emory, where later Jimmy Carter became head of law there. Now, this man, Robertshire, was one of the few honest, good men, and he paid a price for it. The last book he had published, he did have them published by some of the very, I say, elite publishers, but I've forgotten who published this one, The Power of Psychiatry, in 1980, I believe, or '81, and he died about that time. He had 10 of my cases in the last chapter. He didn't mention my name, but he had referred Jean Srokerman. She had contacted because she'd been raped by a psychiatrist there, and she was suing him. So he referred to my attorney, Eugene Kaiser, who was a former Atlanta, Fulton County District Attorney. And she later went to work. I mean, she didn't, well, she did. She was suing a psychiatrist for rape. And she went to work at Piedmont Hospital, which is Larry McDonald, the hospital he was prominent in, and urologist. And where some of these doctors like Hardiman, my God, my husband, or ex-husband, whoever he turns out to be, was in his office. What was he doing in his office? My husband was supposed to be helping me in the things that were happening to me and my kids, and protect us while I got the book published. He never bothered to tell me that he was supposed to marry me. He did. Who he worked for, really, I don't know. But what's he doing in Hardiman's office? She has connection to Amanda, that was the name in the book, Carol Johnson, who had a pretty darn good job there, and because she was truthful, they took her job away from her, and then she sidestepped me then because she was losing her job and couldn't afford to. So they almost killed me April Fool Day of '80, even with an FBI letter. So this may sound rambling. I can't help it. I've been through hell. That's all I can say, and I'm not getting paid for this. I've paid, you're talking about end times here, and I didn't understand that until I got into it. And there it was. It was after my father was taken down because he wouldn't allow the treaties to be signed that allowed the United States to come in and take over the UK, military bases underneath it, position themselves so that they take over my relatives who are monarchs at Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, and I'm leaving somebody out there, I'm sorry. Okay, I wanted to read this. Mind control is what I started writing about, and Larry Flynt was shot by a program shooter, and you got JFK was involved in my kidnapping, and his father was appointed ambassador to England for that very purpose, to take out my father. Then I was born, and I put up here about JFK Jr. coming up on, and his cousin, who was Lee Radziwill's son, Jackie Bouvier, Kennedy's sister. He was cousin JFK, and they came up, and I'd spent the second winter up there, I believe, freezing and starving, no food, clothing. And they come up the old trail, then it was next year, so you can look this up. The trail would have it, people, on the Appalachian Trail. The next year after he came up was when they finished the new part of the trail on Mountain Pass Road up to Full Heart Knob Shelter. He came up and he said, I said, "You look like JFK Jr." He said, "Well, that's who I am." And that was his cousin. And he put his backpack down, and they took out their food, peanuts, I remember. Oh, they didn't offer me any. He said, "We just came up here to see how we made you live." So he admitted knowing about me and what they'd done to me, etc., etc. The only thing I can say there, after they gloated, came all the way up there. You'd think he'd write all about it in George Magazine, right? Since it's such a feather in their cap. But no, he turned around and left. And the only thing I can say is in 98 or 98, I guess, he died in the plane crash. I've put this up. He had married a twin, and I've forgotten there was 3 in the flight. So he went down, and he did die. People think he didn't, but he did. 12 days later, his cousin that came up there to taunt me and gloat died of cancer. Now, I want to go back to, no, it's not all right to do any of this to me and my children. It's a horror story in my country and my parents. Okay, now then back to, I'm just going to read this off. Catherine McDonald kicks off a campaign. This is one I was in 83 and flown out to Flynt, where her husband, Larry McDonald, went down on the plane, head of the John Birch Society. And it talks about some of this in the YouTube I mentioned. Here's what she said. She stated if elected, her first trade war would be her first trade, well, I don't know, I can't read my own writing, would be to shut off trade with communist nations in retaliation for the Soviets shooting down the plane. Oh, me. First of all, oh, and guess who they were all for? I got some nasties because Larry Flynt was helping me, and thank God he sent a speechwriter, but the odd thing is, like, now I'm doing all my stuff, but she's a nice lady, very attractive, and she helped me a lot in getting the tapes and everything, commercials, if you want to call it a commercial, campaign advertisement. But anyway,